Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at a full reading assessment for both Level 1 and Level 2 Functional Skills English. We're going to look at some of the most typical and some of the most challenging questions for the reading exam, and also if you stay until the end we're going to go through our 5 top tips that you need to pass the reading assessment as well. Look at the key information below and recall the key skills needed for the reading assessment. So in terms of your exam then, these are the key bits of information that you do need to know. So for all exams, you need to turn up 15 minutes before the start of the assessment. This is really important because we don't know what's going to happen in terms of the room changes or making sure you're actually going where you need to go. So make sure you go there nice and early. 15 minutes normally is what is expected for every single assessment. Secondly, bring a form of ID. So this would be either your college ID, a passport, or a driving license. Really, we need some kind of photographic evidence to prove who you are, to make sure they know that you're going to the right exam. Next, we have exams will typically be an hour long, so make sure you're thinking about practicing with your timing when you're doing things like the practice reading exam. Do try and be quite strict with yourself and get used to that practice of actually working to a time deadline as well. There'll be 30 marks available. 20 marks out of 30 will get you a pass, and it may take up to 6 weeks for your results to come through. So with this in mind, it's really important that once you've finished your reading assessment to keep on practicing those skills. It might be, unfortunately, that 6 weeks down the line you find that you need to resit the exam, so do keep on top of all of those other skills as well. If you can stretch and challenge yourself as well, think about the reading assessments you might have done in the past and think, do you get marked for SPAG in this assessment? So the first thing we're going to do then, we're going to look at document 1. So we're going to read the extract and we're going to respond to comprehension questions that follow. Now if you want the full extent of the exam, you can actually download it if you look at the link below the description there as well, and then you'll be able to go through it at your own leisure. Alternatively, you can just use this video and pause it and carry on forward to the bits that you need. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the first document. This is going to be text A, or also going to be known as source 1. It's important to note as well, I did just say in the stretch and challenge, do you get marked for your SPAG? You don't actually get marked on SPAG for the reading assessment, it's only going to be for your writing. So it says to them, "Hi mate, I just wanted to send you this email to explain how awful things have got in Staffordshire since your family moved away. When we were kids, it was so easy to just hop on a bus or a train for a good day out. It was cheap, easy and no hassle. However, these days, using the public transport could be the worst mistake you make. Last week, I was forced to use public transport. They say bad things come in threes, so I really should have been expecting something bad to happen as soon as I had an issue booking my seat online. It took me 45 minutes to book my seat. The website kept refreshing and losing all of my info. Then, when I was finally able to pay for the ticket, the confirmation email was nowhere to be found. As if this wasn't bad enough, things only got worse when I got on the train. Firstly, let me tell you about the conductor. I received no sympathy when I explained about the confirmation email, and after 10 long minutes of muttering and scrolling through his device, he finally found out that I had, in fact, paid for my ticket. I don't know what these people have to do as part of their training, but I'm guessing they don't spend a lot of time going over customer service. Secondly, the smell was horrendous. There was a mixture of stale food, stinking passengers, and what I can only assume was something you'd normally find in a toilet. I honestly don't know how people put up with this kind of service. When I think about my nice, clean, air-conditioned car, I can't believe how we take such things for granted. If I'd have to use public transport every day, I think I'd lose my mind. Finally, can you guess what happened next? That's right, the train broke down. It was bloody unbelievable. I was stuck in the cold waiting for 45 minutes for a bus to come and recover me and the rest of the stranded passengers. Frankly, I don't care about the fossil fuels and global warming. Give me my comfortable car and my nice and easy commute any day. Anyways, sorry for the rant. I'm sure you're rolling your eyes at me losing my temper, as always, but it helps us to get these things out. I hope that you and your family are okay. We should really meet up sometime, as long as no trains or buses are involved. All the best, Dave." So that is the full extent of our document 1 then. What you'll actually find in the exam is that you'll have your first document will be based on the first 10 questions, then the second document will be based on the next 10. So let's jump ahead now and have a look at the questions that you'll have for document 1. Attempt the questions below to test your understanding on what you've just read. Question 1. Which of the following words best describes the tone of document 1? So is it A, happy, B, dismissive, C, angry, or D, formal? Number 2. Look at the first paragraph. Where has the writer used a superlative to describe his experiences with public transport? Number 3. What part of the UK is the writer from? Number 4. Look at document 1. What DeForest technique has been used in the line? Finally, can you guess what happened next? And number 5. Look at the line, the smell was horrendous. Replace the word horrendous with another suitable adjective so that the sentence still makes sense. Now if you want to pause the video here and go through at your own leisure, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead and look at the next 5 questions that focus on document 1. Number 6. Look at document 1. Identify where the writer has used a triplet or group of 3. Number 7. Look at document 1. Identify 2 ways that the writer has given emphasis to the point he was making. And you can see with this question it actually specifies that there's 2 marks. So that's because we're saying 2 ways, so therefore each way that you identify will achieve you 1 mark. Number 8. Look at document 1. Identify 1 example of colloquial language, also known as slang, used by the writer. Number 9. Look at the paragraph 3. Firstly, let me tell you about. From the list below, identify the most appropriate phrase to describe the paragraph. So is it A, the benefits of owning your own vehicle? B, why is public transport so bad? C, employers on public transport don't care about the customers? Or D, 7 steps to transport success? Number 10. Look at document 1. Identify 2 issues the writer had while booking the train journey. Again, if you need to pause it now, please feel free to do so. We're now going to move on to the next section. Look at document 2 and be ready to respond to the next 10 questions. Time to forget fossil fuels. Are you worried about our planet? Are you concerned about the effects of fossil fuels on the environment? Here at Campaign for Tomorrow, we are striving to make a better future for all. One of the best ways we can all work together is by ditching our personal cars and relying more on public transport. Research has shown that public transport has helped to reduce carbon emissions by 20% since 2017. The cold hard facts. We understand that this is easier said than done, but nothing worth doing is ever easy. For generations we have abused this earth. We have put ourselves in a hole. We have no choice but to do whatever it takes to dig ourselves out of it. We need you to put up with the delays, the expense, and yes, even the bad smells that comes with using things like buses and trains. Many people would argue, well, what about the cost? However, compared to the cost of tax, insurance, and fuel, the price of which seems to be rising every week, we all have the potential to save more money and, in the process, save the planet. When it comes down to it, the choice is simple. Either we act now, or we leave our children and grandchildren to deal with the consequences. Transport for the future. We understand that despite the data, despite the overgrowing dangers, some of us will never resort to using public transport. The reason for this is a simple one. Many of us remember buses and trains that were unreliable, uncomfortable, and costing a lot more than the service ever seemed to deliver. These minor issues are now a thing of the past, however. Using our new travel app can help you keep you up to date on our latest schedules, special offers, and any potential delays. With the new advancement in public transport, suffering delays will be a thing of the past. Alternatives to public transport. In 2023, we are lucky to be living through the age of technological innovation that has gifted us with solutions to our transportation needs. Electric scooters offer a great way to shoot around town without having a detrimental effect on the environment. They offer low running costs and can often be a more practical alternative to using the bus service. Want to seriously improve your carbon footprint? Why not go for more traditional forms of transportation? Research has shown that people who ride a bicycle 2 or more times a week can improve their health by 20% if carried out consistently. Additionally, walking has been proven to improve not just your physical health, but your mental health too. So that's the full extent of document 2. Now we're going to move on and look at the next questions for the reading assessment. Answer the questions based on document 2. So number 11 then. Look at document 2. Identify the subheading that explains the new change that has been made to public transport. Number 12. Look at document 2. What is meant by the term technological innovation? Number 13. Look at the line, without having a detrimental effect to the environment. Replace the word detrimental with another suitable adjective. Number 14. Look at document 2. Identify 2 benefits of using an electronic scooter. And you can see here, as we've highlighted in bold there, that this question is actually worth 2 marks. Number 15. Question 15 is about both documents. Jamie Carter and Campaign for Tomorrow offer different views on public transport. Use one piece of supporting evidence from each document to compare how these views differ. And you can see with this question as well, it's worth 4 marks. So bear that in mind when you're writing your response. Think about the kind of things you need to do to make sure you get the maximum amount of marks possible for this type of question. Number 16. Give 2 facts and 2 opinions from document 2. And you can see again with this question, it's worth 4 marks. Number 17. Identify 2 main purposes of document 2. And you have a number of options to choose from. So first of all, is it to entertain, to amuse, to persuade, to narrate, or to inform? So the key with this question as well is to think very carefully about the question, and the key word you want to focus on is main. So what is the main purposes of document 2? What are they trying to get out of the actual content that they're writing and giving to the audience? Number 18. Give 2 examples of where the writer has used emotive language. Give a different effect for each one the reader has used. Okay, and that one's worth 4 marks. This one can be quite a difficult one. So if you actually look at the physical question paper, what you'll have is you'll actually have 4 spaces available to fill out. So you'd be expected to say an example of emotive language, and then underneath that you'd have another section to say the effect that this will have. Again, it's worth 4 marks, so think about how you're going to respond to this question to get the most marks possible. So once you've done that, it'll be important to go back through, check your answers. We've had a maximum of 30 marks available for all questions. So in order to actually get a pass, you would need to get 20 out of 30. Class feedback. Check your understanding against the mark scheme. So for number 1 then, which of the following words best describes the tone of document 1? So we have angry. Number 2, look at the first paragraph. Where has the writer used a superlative to describe his experiences with public transport? So if you're not sure what we mean by superlative, this is a word that will indicate the highest or the lowest extent of something. So the superlative used would be the word worst, meaning there's nothing else that comes close to this that is as bad as that service. Number 3, what part of the UK is the writer from? And he's from Staffordshire. Number 4, look at document 1. What deforest technique has been used in the line, finally, can you guess what happened next? And that would be, of course, a rhetorical question. If you're not too sure about what we mean by any of these, do check out all the videos that do go into it in more detail. Number 5, look at the line, The smell was horrendous. Replace the word horrendous with another suitable adjective so that the sentence still makes sense. So for that one then there's multiple answers you could put, but answers may include but are not limited to horrible, disgusting, vile, horrid and sickening. And you can see there we've included the word etc, which means it can go on and have more options as well. If you're not too sure if you've got the right answer, do leave us a comment and we can get back to you. Alternatively, just test out the sentence yourself and see if it actually still makes sense in the way that it originally made sense in the sentence. Now we're going to move on to question 6 then. So look at document 1, identify where the writers used a triplet or a group of 3. So we think about another one of our De Forest techniques. So answers may include but are not limited to. There was a mixture of stale food, sickening passengers, and what I can only assume was something you'd normally find in a toilet. You could also go for, it was cheap, easy, and no hassle. Okay, so moving on now to number 7. Look at document 1, identify 2 ways the writer has given emphasis to the point he was making. So when we say emphasis, how have they actually gave greater point or said something in a kind of louder or more important way? So with that one then we could say answers may include using exclamation marks and using a bold font in their writing. So if you look, it actually says in fact in the extract, which gives a little bit more pop to what they're trying to say, like they've underlined that main idea and really trying to justify it to the audience. Number 8, look at document 1, identify one example of colloquial language. Hopefully by now you know what we mean by colloquial language, but it just means slang. So we would say something along the lines of anyways, mate, or kids, all of which would be classed as slang or colloquial language. Okay, moving on now then to number 9. Look at paragraph 3. This is the one that starts with, firstly, let me tell you about. From the list below, you should identify the most appropriate phrase to describe the paragraph. It's really important that we focus on that word, the most appropriate, as well, because that's going to tell us which one would be the highest or the most appropriate one to choose from the list. Okay, so we either have the benefits of owning your own vehicle, why is public transport so bad, employers on public transport don't care about the customers, or 7 steps to transport success. So for number 9, the best one would be employers on public transport don't care about the customers. And if you really look at that section of the text, you can see he's really kind of complaining about the level of service he was received while he was going through public transport. Okay, so moving on now to question 10. So you had to identify 2 different issues. So issue 1, the website kept losing his information, and issue 2, he couldn't find the confirmation email. Again, if you've got any that you're unsure about, please do let us know, leave a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We're now going to jump ahead and answer the next part of the questions and use that mark scheme as well. Okay, so we're moving on to the next part now then. So number 11, look at document 2, identify the subheading that explains the new changes that have been made to public transport, and that would be transport for the future. Number 12, look at document 2, what is meant by the term technological innovation. This one was quite a difficult one, I thought. So if you're not familiar with what we mean by this, a suitable replacement would be things like new technology, improvement in technology, or advancement in technology. Number 13. Look at the line, without having a detrimental effect to the environment. Replace the word detrimental with another suitable adjective. So answers could include harmful, damaging, or negative. And there's multiple ones you could use there. Again, just like our previous questions, think about does it actually make sense in the sentence with the suitable word that you want to replace it with. Okay, next we're going on to question 14. Look at document 2. Identify 2 benefits of using an electric scooter. So answers may include a great way to shoot around town and without having a detrimental effect on the environment. Number 15. Question 15 is about both documents. Jamie Carter, that's the person who wrote the first text, and Campaign for Tomorrow offer different views on public transport. Use one piece of supporting evidence from each document to compare how these views differ. Okay, so for that one then, we've got a valid comparison of how the views are conveyed, supported by one piece of supporting evidence from both document 1 and also a piece from document 2. So as long as you're making the comparison for both texts, and as long as you're using quotations from both of these, then you'll get the mark. Now if you do struggle on questions like this, do check out our other video that was uploaded about 2 weeks ago now. It goes through how to answer higher value questions. It's really helpful when you have difficult questions like question 15. Okay, next one then. Number 16. Give 2 facts and 2 opinions from document 2. And again, this is worth 4 marks. So if it's worth 4 marks, then we'd need to write quite a bit in order to actually make sure we're hitting that mark. So if you're not providing the 2 opinions and the 2 facts, or just one from each, you're not going to get the full range of the marks. So answers may include, so for our opinions, we are lucky to be living through an age of technological innovation. So that would be an opinion, because some people would say, well, maybe we're not that lucky to be living through this time. Secondly, you could say these minor issues are now a thing of the past. That's just them stating their opinion. Many people would still say that they do struggle with public transport, so therefore it would be an opinion. For generations we've abused this earth. Now what they're actually doing there is using a lot of emotive language and trying to make us feel a bit guilty for it, but that's an opinion. You know, certainly the earth has been abused, you could argue, in terms of pollution, but really saying that we have all done it is a little bit heavy-handed with that opinion there. Now on to the facts. Walking has been proven to improve not just your physical health, but your mental health too. Okay, so it's been proven. It's hard to actually argue with something like that. It's also hard to argue with statistics as well. Some of us will never resort to using public transport. It's not saying everyone won't do it, but some of us, there will be some, even if it's a small minority of people, will never use public transport, which is going to be true. And our new travel app can help keep you up to date on the latest schedules. Okay, so it's a fact. That is the function that the app actually helps you to do. And the final one, research has shown that public transport has helped to reduce carbon emissions by 20% since 2017. So again, it's really hard to argue when they're using a statistic, because again, it is a fact with numbers. Okay, if you want to pause the video here and go back over your answers, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead to the next part. So we're thinking about our mark scheme again then. So for our next question, number 17, identify 2 main purposes of document 2. So why have they actually put pen to paper? What was the purpose behind this? So you have to persuade and inform. Those would be the correct answers there as well. Number 18, give 2 examples of where the writer has used emotive language. This is going to be quite a difficult one, because you need to give an effect for each one and explain the effects had on the reader. Okay, so answers may include but are not limited to. First example would be, we're striving to make a better future for all, and the effect that this has had is that this makes the reader feel like it is good to work together and support Campaign for Tomorrow. So it's kind of using that emotive sense that, come on, we all need to get behind this and really work together to really affect some real change. So the next example I have, for generations we've abused this earth. So clearly when you're using a word like abused, that's a very strong, powerful word, very emotive. This makes the reader feel guilty for not using public transport. It's there to shock us and to make us feel quite guilty for what we do in using our cars. Next, we have either we act now or we leave our children and grandchildren to deal with the consequences. Now this is quite difficult, because when you're thinking about the effect that they're using, it can be very similar to the other effects for the quotations. But when we think about this one particularly, this will try and make the reader want to use public transport to help future generations. So yes, it is making us feel guilty like the previous one, but it's also getting us to think about future generations. So even though it's a similar effect, there is quite a subtle difference between the two. Now that we've been through the full assessment, then hopefully you're able to go through, add up all of your marks, because again it was out of 30 marks total. 20 marks will get you a pass, so it's really good to try and get that idea and to understand where you're at. If you do want the full extent of the actual exam paper and have that physical document in front of you, do click on the link underneath the description that will take you to the full actual document as well. Now we're going to look at our 5 top tips to keep in mind for your assessment. So the first thing to think about is to practice skimming and scanning skills. Now you don't always have to be reading for hours and hours to do this. You can literally just do it by looking up newspaper articles or anything like that, and there's a load of them to be found online. So just practicing those basic reading skills is so important. Secondly, be aware of how many marks each question is worth. So if a question's only 1 mark, then you don't need to be writing a full paragraph for it. It might sound a bit obvious, but a lot of people do this. If it's worth 4 marks, then you will be required to do a little bit more. So read the question carefully and make sure you're fully aware of what the examiner is asking for you. Number 3, keep an awareness of how much time you have left. It's really easy to get stressed out in exams. You're typically going to have an hour for this exam, so be aware of how much time you actually spend on each question, and don't leave it too late to get to those higher value questions. The next one then, revise your language techniques, not just De Forest. So De Forest is often the main techniques that we go through, but there's other things that you need to be aware of. There's things like a bias as well, which we went through in our last lesson. There's things like humour, there's things like sarcasm, there's puns. All of these are really important and they could very well come up in your assessment. And finally, recall and revise how to make comparisons between 2 or more documents. When we look at things like question 15, where it's a higher value question, they will require you to do kind of questions that are more in line with GCSE or level 2 reading as well. So do be aware that you will be asked to compare 2 documents, and the more you do that, the easier it's going to be when you actually get into the assessment. In terms of our next lesson then, we're going to focus on the following things. So for the moment, we're going to leave reading for a bit because we've got our reading assessment coming up. We're going to focus mainly on our writing. So we're going to focus on the key elements of the writing assessment. We're going to think about how to revise for English because that's something that I'll commonly get asked about. And finally, we're going to look at an example writing assessment and just get ourselves into that mental headspace of what we need to do to be successful for this, which is often the hardest assessment in the whole course. Now if you need any additional support or help, then new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, you're welcome to leave us a comment below or visit our partner channel Bookworm Teaching for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Guys, if you ever need anything marked or anything like that or some feedback, please do consider joining our membership. It really helps us out and we can give you that extra support as you go through your course. Thanks ever so much and all the best for your work, revision and your assessments in the future. Bye bye.